Hi, is this Sandra?
Yes.
Hey, Sandra, my name is Chris with National Property Buyer, and I was just calling because a bit ago you had submitted your information about your property at Lawrence Street, and I was just wondering if you had actually sold that property or if it's something that you still have available for sale.
It's under contract.
That hurts. I think I just saw a client fumble a deal that could be potentially have been worth $15,000 to $20,000, and I want to explain to you what happened in the situation, and that way potentially you can avoid the same thing. Now, when it comes to running ads for motivated sellers using Facebook and say TikTok, there's a couple of nuances you have to understand about the model when you're running those campaigns, and especially when you're running them in a nationwide and or any sort of large geography, because the way you approach those leads is significantly different than the way you would approach a pay-per-click lead and perhaps some of these other leads that you have experienced in the past. And understanding the mindset required around that is key to making these campaigns successful. Because the fact is that you could end up having a campaign where only one or two leads really are the leads that are worthwhile inside of that campaign. And if you miss those leads, if you fumble those leads, then in the end, you're not going to make any money, and you're going to sit there and saying, "Oh my God, Chico, this is horrible. I'm not making any money. I don't understand why this doesn't work." And the opposite of that is just sitting there saying, "Oh my God, Chico, you're the best thing since sliced bread because I'm making so much money hand over fist, and this is amazing." Two different realities that coexist for within the same universe. So, story time. We set up ads for clients and then we help them run those campaigns. So now they got leads coming in without having to pay for an agency and without having to pay per lead. Now, generally speaking, a lot of clients that we have are either brand new, never done a deal before, or we will have experienced people that want to get into online marketing and so are open to the nationwide model. We also do more localized campaigns, but this heat conversations around more of the nationwide model, because if you're brand new in the business, typically I recommend a wider approach where you're targeting nationwide or you're targeting a variety of states, because if you were to target really tightly, your cost per lead increases, and therefore now you can go through a lot of leads because you're not that great, and you end up losing a lot of money. So generally speaking, if you're brand new in the business, you need repetitions in order to get better at the business. Now, this model requires a different mindset, because it's the mindset of a sifting and sorting sifting and sorting versus a convincing model. If you're doing any sort of outbound cold calling, if you're doing any sort of say Google pay-per-click, which is a lead that's a higher intent, but that lead is a lot more costly. So when you have leads that you're spending 200, 250, then you really got to squeeze as much as you can out of every single lead. It's a necessity, because otherwise you'll end up spending a bunch of money and going broke. However, when you use our model where you're getting a ton of leads, and some days it might be one lead, some days it might be 5 leads a day. And these leads are generally not that expensive. They're $15 a lead, plus or minus. And so you might think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's only $15 a lead. But as these leads come in, it's very easy to get inundated, because although in the beginning, first couple of days, not that big of a deal, but 2 weeks later, every day now you have new leads coming in. You have old leads you're trying to get a hold of. You also have properties that you're trying to put on the contract. You have properties that you have on the contract that you're trying to sell. And very quickly it goes from you sitting there a few weeks ago saying, "I don't have any leads. I don't know what to do with my real estate business," to saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm going completely out of my mind because I have so many leads." Not a bad problem to have, but you have to approach it properly. And so in this model, what I call the sifting and sorting model, is really identifying those small number of leads that are going to make or break your campaigns. Only a handful of them. We get leads that are going to be just complete crap. Leads in the middle of nowhere. There's no sign of human civilization anywhere near these leads, and it's okay. You can scratch them. You can say, "I'm not going to call that lead." Now, if you're brand new in the business and you have not talked to that many sellers, I recommend you call everybody because that's going to help you get practice. But generally, once you get up and running and you know what you're doing, then you might not even call them. Listed leads, no way to avoid them. In general, out of all of our campaigns, and I've analyzed, like, yesterday I did an analysis of the last 100 leads that have come in over the last 2 or 3 days. 20% of them are listed. You can't avoid it. Some people complain about it. I said, listen, just ignore it. Even we've done it in the past where we put in the form, if it's listed, then the form automatically rejects it. But sellers are crafty. They'll come back, refill the form out, and lie and say that it's not listed. The next thing you know, you're talking to them and you're like, it's listed, but you said it wasn't listed. So there's no way to avoid it. So I wouldn't even bother with that. Then you have mobile homes, which mobile homes, we have made money if the land is included. So that's just, figuring out if the mobile home is near, a major metro, that helps. And if it's not, then figuring out, if it's not in a major metro, then forget about it. But if it's in a major metro or near a major metro, is figuring out, I don't know why I'm coughing, figuring out why, figuring out if they own the land or not. And if they don't own the land, then that's it. That's it. We don't even bother with them because it's a motor vehicle sale. It's not even real estate related. And then you're keeping your eye on the leads. Now, you're going to have leads that just people are completely out of their minds. They're just asking way too much money. Zillow says it's 300. And then you look at it and you're like, they're asking 450,000 and Zillow says it's 300. There's no way in hell it'd be worth that much. So that's it. Maybe you might want to have a conversation with them for shits and giggles, get your practice on talking with sellers, and then that's it. But cut that conversation very quickly. But then you get a lead like the one that I saw here. And this particular lead, as I'm looking at the sheet where the lead came in, it was in the major metro, Alabama. And asking price was $75,000 on the Trello, $75,000. Inherited property. It said it needed major renovations. I mean, that's like if you're not getting goosebumps when you see a lead like that, okay. And then here's the thing: I look on Zillow, I look at the house, and I'm looking at the house, and I'm thinking, this is exactly the neighborhood, and it's exactly the same type of house that is perfect. And Zillow says $120,000 estimate. They're asking 75. Now, granted, that's your asking price. Could you get it a little bit lower than that? Yeah. And now I'm looking at Zillow only. It's 1,800 square feet, so could be worth more, could be worth less. But this is immediately, when you see a lead like this come in, you stop everything. You ignore every single lead, and all you do is you focus on getting a hold of that lead. Now, the client said that they had tried to call the seller and couldn't get a hold of them. And, sometimes that happens because people are on social media. So they may have filled out the form on their phone, and they might be in the bathroom for all we know, sitting down in the toilet. And they got one hand on the phone, the other hand in the back, trying to do what they're going to do. And you're calling them. They ain't going to pick up the phone. But you are aggressive with them. You text them. Hey, this is Cris with National Property Buyer calling you back about the property that you submitted the information from. You call them. You call them again. You call them 3 times that day. You do everything you can to get a hold of them. Because chances are there's other real estate wholesalers floating around. And speed is key. And one day can mean the difference between you missing out on that lead and not. And so here in this scenario, that was lost. And so now if let's say that I tell you that 1 out of every 35, 40 leads could be a deal. Well, that lead could be lead number 4. That lead could be lead number, because we're talking averages, right? So if I tell you 1 out of every 35, then, or 1 out of, let's use a number, worst case scenario, because I like to use worst case scenario numbers. 1 out of 50, which isn't bad, because if you're paying $20 a lead, let's say, and we have campaigns running at, $15 a lead, but let's say it's $20 a lead, that means you spent $1,000 to get 50 leads. And the average assignment fee is $15K. So that means that $15K against 1,000, that's a 10x ROI. Like you should be dancing for joy. You should be sending me bottles of tequila if I send you that kind of lead flow. But again, that's a law of averages. So if I tell you 1 out of every 50, then it could be lead number 5 is a banger. It could be, lead number 65 is a banger. and lead 75 is a banger, and you never know. But now, if lead number 45 ends up being the deal, and you mishandle it, either they don't trust you, you're not great on the phone, none of that stuff, and or you just delay, and you end up missing out on the deal, then guess what? Now you got to wait for the next one. And then now what happens if that next lead is lead number 85? Guess what? Now you're like, Chico, I've gone through 85 leads and I haven't gotten a deal yet. And I take that, I used to take those comments and say, oh my gosh, is something wrong with me? I'm not really that great at ads, and maybe something's wrong with what I'm doing. And then I've realized over time that there's a lot of variables that I cannot control, a lot of them, and I have to take comments like that with a grain of salt. Because recently we had a call in one of our programs where a client was complaining and saying, I haven't gotten any deals and I'm really frustrated. And then toward the tail end of the conversation, he admitted, yeah, there might have been a couple of leads that I may have fumbled and I lost them. Well, that's not on me. That's on you. And I see that across the board. So you have to take responsibility, number one, for your own actions and situations, and know that there's always two parallel universes that exist. There's people with exactly the same lead source that you have. And one is banging away at deals and they can't seem to, they're fattening up their bank account. And then you have another group that is completely struggling. And on the surface, you might look at that person that's struggling and they might tell you, oh, don't do Facebook ads for motivated sellers. They suck. They stink. Those leads are unmotivated. And you got to take that stuff with a grain of salt, because it could be that they suck. And likelihood is that they're not doing something correct. And granted, I poo-poo. And, the other day somebody got mad at me because I was saying that cold calling sucks. And I look at myself as a politician, meaning that I'm preaching my propaganda. And my propaganda is cold calling sucks. I think you should do online marketing because you get inbound leads, and that's a much easier and much better business to run. Some of you may agree, some of you may not. If you're doing cold calling and it's working, then fine. Just keep on doing cold calling. Don't stop what you're doing. But at the end of the day, anything can work. If you, I can't believe I'm saying this, if you devoted yourself to being amazing at cold calling, meaning that you are great on the phone, you are like butter. All right. I mean, when you talk to a seller, if it's a female, not only do they want to sell you their house, but they want to come and meet you in Miami and shack up with you for a weekend because they just love you. OK, bad joke. And then let's say in that example with I just lost my train of thought with cold calling. And then you made it a point to become the best at the data and to understand what makes a good prospect and which ones are the great list to call. And you focus your time and attention on everything associated with that. I guarantee you that you would make it work. Now, whether or not you want to or not, that's a different story. I think cold calling sucks still. I don't like it, but it's okay. I'm just making a point here that whatever the strategy is, they all work if you commit and you make it that it's a do or die situation for you to make that work. And so I want to encourage you to pick one thing. Could be mine, could be somebody else's, but just pick one way of generating leads, one way of doing deals, and then only focus on that. If you're going to do wholesaling, forget about learning subject to, novations, apartments, blah, blah, blah. Focus on that. That's it. Nothing else. I guarantee you'll make money. And also, take responsibility for your own actions, because at the end of the day, you got to look yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing the best I can, or am I doing what's required for success? And I say that all the time because you think you've been doing your best, and everybody tells you, oh, you're doing your best, but you know what? Your best isn't good enough. And in this case, with this example, his best may not have been good enough. And then now he's got to go find another deal and he's got to spend more money on ads. Now, if you want to know how we run campaigns and we make all this happen, then click on one of these videos here or there, and then that way you can learn how you can run Facebook ads for motivated sellers and not have to worry about cold calling, because I still hate cold calling.